I shared a question with you in the previous loom of if I were a tzaddik. Now I offer a slightly different perspective from the Yetiv Panim. He looked at this pasuk and he noticed something so beautiful. He says in verse 13, it says, "Vayomer hamelech lachachamim yode'ehu itim." The king said to the sages who knew the times, because this was the law of the kingdom in front of all those who knew law and judgment. So the Yetiv Panim says, 1 second, take a step back, and we'll see that there are actually two groups of sages there. There's one group of sages called the Chachamim Yode'ehu Itim, the Chachamim, the sages who understand the times. And then there's another group of sages called Yode'eh, who are aware, das, basic systematic din, rules, the way the world functions. So the Yetiv Panim explains as follows. Yode'eh das vadin refers to people who understand the basic structure of the way the world should work and have a systematic way of viewing the world. But there are times when it's clear that we're no longer living in a world that's running on a system or not the system with which we are familiar. When it seems that all is changing and it's very hard to get a feeling of a firm step on our current reality. For example, if you have a king who gets drunk and ends up wanting to kill his wife, that's not part of das vadin, the normal way the world functions. There's circumstances and the times just present us with a certain issue. So the Yetiv Panim says, from this pasuk we're learning that the great strength of Mordechai and Esther was not that they were Yodei das vadin, that they were the ones who knew the system and the structure and the way things work. This was not the lifnei. There had to be someone who came before, a priority. And the priority during their time, in this type of highly unusual circumstances of an Achashverosh, had to be a Yodei Itim, people who could understand all the different forces playing themselves out during their times and how the different issues arising were how they were informing us about the nature of the times. And instead of looking at it from the typical structure of, if you women would be more tzniistic, because that's usually the first place we go, then if people were more careful, Shomer Shabbos, or if rabbis dressed like rabbis, then maybe the world would, the whole system would go back. I don't think so during these times, and I think this is actually a time of Yode'ehu Itim, where the Yetiv Panim says this has to be someone who obviously is learning Torah, obviously is very attached to halacha and to awareness of Hashem, but is not processing the situation only through das vadin, but has a very deep sense of Yode'ehu Itim, which, by the way, is true in halacha in numerous places.